Hello and welcome to the Savvy Money Show with me, your host Sean. If you find any of today's entertainment informative, please hit that lovely like button. It's as lovely as me. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit that sexy subscribe button. It's a lot more sexier than me. And please hit that bell notification. You'll be notified when another video comes out. If you're looking for any free trading apps, please see the links below. For the person who asked me what kit I use, those are in the description below as well. Anyway, on with the show. Today we're discussing China and Vietnam. I said I'd go through it. Vietnam has had a greater economic growth than China. China has actually had its growth go backwards for the past couple of years. However, Vietnam has only had 20 years of peace. They've lifted 40 million people out of poverty in the middle income within 3 decades. They've joined the World Trade Organization in 2007. It's taken only 1 decade to grow. China joined in 2001 and reached the highest growth in 2007. When Vietnam joined, the average wage was $120 per annum. Sorry, I keep getting pounds and dollars mixed up. Now it's 1,350, and Trump is complaining about Vietnam's working practice and could be a target for. However, with everything that's going on, I think he'll put a pass on that until he's finished with China, because businesses such as Nike and a lot of others have moved factories from China to Vietnam. Trump is urging all American factories to move their companies out of China. Where are they going to get the cheap goods from? Where are they going to get the cheap manufacturing from? He wants them to move back to America, but they won't get cheap manufacturing there because they have to pay a proper wage. They have to pay unemployment insurance. They have to pay medical insurance. They have to pay a lot more than these countries do. Now, the thing is, Japan spent 22 billion to start moving its factories out of China, and China also used Vietnam as a waypoint. Vietnam is ranked 125 GDP per capita. It's also ranked 117th in corruption perception index. Industry and construction make up 34% of its economy, which is rising quicker than any other. The labour is 7 times cheaper than China at the moment. So the thing is, China, the average wage is now gone above $13,000 a year. So you have to wonder if it's worth using China. The only reason for China now is their skilled workers, because their workers are very skilled. So you're basically getting skilled workers at minimum wage or just below minimum wage without having to pay any of the extras bonuses you'd pay to the workers. But the problem there is the money's going to the Chinese government and China, whereas you go to Vietnam, you're helping prop up a poorer country. It's not going to the Chinese government. You're not supporting a government that you're threatening or at war with. Not technically at war, but that you're waging a trade war with. So it just seems a lot better. China has also done a false requisition of factory just because their country has arrested Chinese people before. And remember, this week the FBI has arrested 2 researchers for being Chinese spies, one of which was a Chinese-born researcher. So in the past, when Canada has arrested a Chinese spy, then they've closed down a Canadian factory and they've requisitioned the factory for themselves. Now, the IP transfers, certain percentage must be owned by either a Chinese person or the Chinese government before you set it up. A living meal in China would be $10. For the same meal in Vietnam would be $1.50. Manufacturing decreased 7% in 2019 for China. Now, before recent developments, America, after COVID-19 first hit, America was already planning to remove 70% of, persuade 70% of its companies to move from China. Now it wants all of its companies to stop trading with China and to move out of China. As I said, where are they going to move to? The common sense says Vietnam. It seems to be the common sense place to go. And as I said before, does it go to Africa? Africa, 25 top 50 growth countries in the world are African countries. Problem is, because China has invested so much money in Africa, when it came to human rights abuses in Korea, the only 2 countries that didn't oppose it were China and a certain African country that China had loaned a lot of money to. Now, I'm not saying they bought votes. I'm not saying, and this country had originally opposed it. I'm not saying China forced them to change their vote, but it seems very suspicious. I know in Africa, Facebook have laid down lots of cables. So, in my opinion, if you're moving your company out of China, and I think most of them should now, because you've got the trade war, which means China could end up taking your factory and everything you own there. You have the rise in price costs, 13k a year. No offence, a lot of people in England are on 0-hour contracts on 15-16k a year. Some of them are on 13k a year. So you have that. You have the fact that you could move it to Africa or Vietnam and still get the same kind of quality. Now, I think they should go to Vietnam. It will be a lot cheaper, and they will get and there's less political instability. The only problem is, because of the rise in manufacturing in Vietnam, the economical problems. Now, as said, it's been a huge shift in the environment. An environment that's used to being grassland and very few buildings, all of a sudden has a lot of manufacturing plants, churning out products day after day, hour after hour. The air that used to be clear and clean as you get near the manufacturing district now is full of fog and smoke, the way China was about 10 years ago. Now, once they become a bit richer and grow a bit, they could probably put in some environmental practices like China did. But until then, they can't afford to. Because although they have done a lot with their growth so far, as I said, they've grown at a faster rate than China did. What they haven't done is put in the environmental practices. However, this is a Savvy Money show, not a political show. This is show you how companies like Nike, who are already in Vietnam, won't be subject to any problems with the trade war, whereas a factory which is in China, such as Apple, will be. So we have to think about these things when buying shares in companies over there. I'm not saying the shares will be affected. I'm just saying we have to look at everything, the geopolitical aspect. This is why Chinese shares on the US stock market don't go for as much as US companies on the stock market. So, also, if you're thinking of setting up a company or doing a contract for your company in Asia, think about where you're placing. No. But do a whole background check on where the factory is placed. Purely because we all know how Trump gets once he starts getting a bee in his bonnet. I'm not saying he's wrong, I'm not saying he's right. That's not my decision to say. This is only to give you information about the current climate. I hope you hit like and subscribe. A lot of time and effort went into researching this information, as it does with all of mine. I'm sorry I didn't edit it a bit better, but as I say, try to get this information out as quick as possible. As you know, in my earlier video, China have tried to attack certain countries. They've tried to reclaim the South China Seas, thinking Japan, Taiwan, or all these, the Philippines and all these would be too sick or too poor to react. They reacted. They had to hold off until it was resolved in the international court. They then tried to claim Mount Everest, saying they don't class Nepal as a country. Everest is theirs, and they got a barrage as big as Mount Everest. Now, they then tried sending helicopters and troops to the edge of India-China border, which was breaking the Indian-Chinese agreement. On top of that, in order to pay Pakistan, in order to pay off their debt to China, they not only were forcing them to test their COVID-19 cure and vaccine on Pakistani civilians, they also forcing them to choose China to build their dam. The only thing is, they're building it on a piece of land that is contested by India to be on Indian land, and India has kicked up about it, but China doesn't seem to care. And with Trump kicking out China Mobile, Tencent, a couple of these companies, America, and then saying he's going to kick Huawei out, China then retaliated saying, well, we're going to kick any semiconductor companies out of China, like a tit for tat. Anyway, I hope you hit the like and subscribe button. If you keep hitting like and subscribe, I'll keep doing videos. Hope you enjoy them. Give me your comments on today's video below. As I said, all these political things affect our share prices. That's why some people don't invest in certain countries. Look at what happened with Luckin Coffee in China, Starbucks of China. They were fraudulently cooking the books to make it look more attractive. Now it's suspended. And if you want me to do one on Luckin Coffee, if it comes back on the market, I will, whether you should buy or not. Anyway, that's all from me. I'll see you in the next video.